Hello and welcome to Cooking Books with Heather. Today it's Saturday night, but we're preparing for our Sunday morning breakfast. We're going to be making cornmeal waffles with apple cider syrup from Tanya Holland's Brown Sugar Kitchen cookbook. She's got a new cookbook coming out. I can't wait to see it, but I haven't looked at it yet. I don't know if it's out yet, but it's out very, very soon as of filming time. But this is something that needs to sit at least 4 hours in the refrigerator, so you don't really want to whip it up in the morning because you want to let it sit in the refrigerator first. It can sit for 4 hours or up to overnight, so we're going to make it for tomorrow. The first thing we need to do though for this recipe is to start the apple cider syrup. So to do that, we have a pot here and a bunch of apple cider. This is just plain apple cider, no flavorings or anything. Fresh cider, not hard cider. Very tasty. We're going to add to this a lot of butter. So there's going to be butter in the syrup. It's going to be a buttery syrup. Got a trash bag. We're going to add quite a bit of brown sugar that I've already measured. We're going to put some cinnamon sticks in here, and they're going to help infuse this with the cinnamon flavor. And we've got a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Not a whole lot. I'm going to be very careful measuring this over the pot that I don't get too much in here. There we go. That shouldn't make it, super tangy or anything, but it might give it a little bit of an undertone there. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Now, I'm not going to show you this part because it's going to take at least 45 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on this stove, bring it to a boil. I'm probably going to turn it up sort of medium high to bring it to a boil. Reduce it to a simmer, and then we're going to simmer it for about 45 minutes. But what we're looking for is for all of this to reduce to about 1.5 cups. So I will probably keep this out and then just measure it if I think it's there. That'll be more than half of the original liquid, reduced by more than half. So yeah, this is going to take a while. So I'm going to get this going. So now that our sauce, our syrup is started, it's not boiling yet. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on it. We can go ahead and start making the waffle batter. And these are yeasted waffles. So I have some warm water. This is not super hot. It's about 90, maybe a little bit above degrees. Should be fine. And we're adding the yeast to the water. And we're gonna stir that up. And we're gonna let this sit until it's foamy. She says about 10 minutes. I'm just gonna give it a nice stir. And hopefully that'll work. She says to use active dry yeast. Honestly, I don't know what ours is labeled, but it's what we use for everything. We bought a very large amount of it, keep it in the freezer and use it for everything, and it works pretty well. So there we go. We're going to set this aside for about 10 minutes. Keep an eye out, okay? And now we're going to start putting together the batter. I'm going to combine the dry ingredients first so I can use the same whisk. Done that before. So we've got cornmeal, flour. Okay, so I've got my flour already pre-measured in here. I'm going to add my cornmeal. So this is about a 2-to-1 ratio here of flour to cornmeal. And then we're going to add, we have some kosher salt and some granulated sugar. And that is it. And I'm going to, instead of sifting it like she says, I'm going to whisk it because that's what I like to do because I don't like to sift. All right, There we go, nicely mixed. Move this over here. Get rid of some of these bowls that I don't need anymore. And now I'm going to combine the wet ingredients. So we're going to start with eggs. So I'm going to crack my eggs into the bowl. Rinse my hands. I'm going to whisk the eggs a little bit before I add the milk, just because I think that works better. And now I'm going to add whole milk. Quite a lot of whole milk. Luckily I had it this time, so I didn't have to sort of combine half and half and 2% to come up with something that's about whole. Which is what I've been having to do recently. I'm just going to whisk this up together. So now we're just going to finish waiting for our yeast to sort of get bubbly. Probably another 7 minutes or so still. So I'm going to clean up while we wait for that, and then we'll be almost done. Okay, so my yeast is a little bubbly. It's fine. I'm sure it's good. So we're gonna add our yeast and water to the wet mixture, so our eggs and our milk. There we go. I'm going to give this a little whisk, get it mixed up well. And now we're going to add this to the flour mixture. This is whisk in. I'm gonna put the wet into the dry, and so the dry into the wet. I don't know, it just doesn't, it's not, I don't think it matters. And unlike pancakes, we're going to whisk this pretty well until it's smooth. It wants to be thoroughly combined. And the very last thing we need to add to this today, there's going to be one ingredient that we add tomorrow. We need to whisk in some melted butter. Now, my microwave happens to be broken at the moment, so I had to melt this on the stove. So I'm a little annoyed at that, but however it happened, we have melted butter. I'm going to sort of whisk as I stir this in. It says until just combined, but I just don't want, it's not super hot, but I don't want it to kind of curdle eggs or anything, so. There we go. There we go. Give it a little bit more of a stir here. All right. And now I need to cover this with plastic wrap. I might transfer it into the smaller bowl, come to think of it, just because it will be easier to cover and easier to find room in my refrigerator. So I'm going to put it in this bowl. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator until we're ready to make waffles in the morning. Now, I will show you what my syrup looks like when it's all done. I think I still have like 40-ish minutes on that. It just came to a boil and reduced it to a simmer. So I'm going to check on that at 45 minutes, and I'll tell you how long mine took when it's actually reduced enough. So I'll show you that, and then we'll see you in the morning to bake up some waffles. We've gotten busy, but I've checked on this every so often, and it's now been about 3 hours, and this is what it looks like while it's cooking. So I'm going to measure it, and we'll see if I've over-reduced it. Okay, you can see it's still got bubbles on the top, but I think we're close to about 2 cups, not 1.5 cups. But I'm gonna call it here, and I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator, and we'll have it tomorrow morning. And if I need to reduce it still at that point, I can, because we'll want to re-warm it. I haven't yet, I've kept the cinnamon sticks, but in the morning I'll take those out. I'll just let them continue to infuse for now, but you want to remove those before you serve them, obviously. So we'll see you in the morning. It's now Sunday morning. I have my apple syrup, apple cider syrup, that's it, warming on the stove. I may have over reduced it because it was very, very thick this morning, much thicker than maple syrup is when it's been refrigerated. So I may need to thin it out with some water. We'll see. I'm heating it up right now, and then I can take the cinnamon sticks out of it because I didn't do that last night, and I really should have because they're totally embedded in it. Anyway, so I'll be looking at that over there occasionally. I also have some sausage that we're gonna serve with our pancakes cooking. Pancakes. Waffles. We're making waffles. There's one more thing we need to add to our waffle batter. Luckily, it did not overflow my bowl with the yeasty goodness last night, but we do need to add something to it. We're gonna add a little bit of baking soda. So this has both yeast and other leavening agents in it, so that's interesting. But we just put it in there and we're gonna just stir it up. We do not need to whisk it at this point, so we're just gonna stir this in. I do want to make sure I get it all throughout it. It's very liquid. Most waffle batters that I've seen end up a little bit thicker than this, but we followed the instructions, so I'm sure it'll be fine. It's almost like a pancake batter though. Anyway, I have a brand new waffle iron. I do have a mini one, and I have one that's pretty old that I think we got for our wedding 20 years ago. So I went and bought a brand new waffle iron. This is not a Belgian one, it's a classic waffle iron, but I think you can probably cook this in whatever you have. So mine came with instructions, and most of them, when the green light comes on, it's preheated and you put the waffle batter in. Mine said half a cup, so that's what I'm going to be using, at least to start out with. And also said to start, mine has browning levels on it, so I'm going to start with 3. So you put the batter in, you close it up, the green light goes off, probably a red light comes on, and then when the green light comes back on, it's ready. It should be fully baked. She says about 3 minutes, whatever. We're just going to go by the light. So we're going for a golden brown, medium sort of color. And I also have my oven preheated. Mine has a warm and hold, but she says, I think 250-ish, with a baking sheet with a rack, because that's where we're going to put these when they're done to hold until we're ready. She says this makes 8 to 10. We'll see what it makes in my waffle iron, but for most of them, I mean, it's a non-stick waffle iron, but she says to oil the plates, and mine also, I think, says to oil plates. So I've got some neutral vegetable oil here and a silicone brush that I'm just going to brush a little bit of oil on both sides. And we've got there. I've got a little bowl to put my measuring cup, which will be really messy when we're done. All right. It says to put it in the middle evenly. Close it up. Red light came on, green light went off. And now we're just gonna wait until the green light comes on. Ooh, we are overflowing. That's great. Hate that. Hate it. So I think I need less than a half cup of batter. All right, green light came on. That was very quick. And there we have our first waffle. Doesn't look perfect. I think for a perfect waffle in this, we would want the batter to be a little bit thicker. but there's not much I can do about that now. I don't want to add any more flour. So, got these little silicone covered tongs. I also might want to cook this a little bit longer next time. So I'm gonna keep this one as it is and keep cooking. We'll see if I get to a perfect one ever, but they do look a lot like hers, except maybe a little bit thinner. I think she might have used a Belgian. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make cornmeal waffles with apple cider syrup from Tanya Holland's Brown Sugar Kitchen Cookbook. So I thought this was a relatively easy waffle batter to make. It came together really quickly. You did have to mix, you used several bowls, mix some things separately, but it's not too bad. That was fine. It's nice to be able to go ahead and mix that up in the evening before you want to eat it, and it can sit in the refrigerator. I know there are other recipes for that, and I'd like to try some other ones too. I've been wanting to try some yeasted waffle recipes. So maybe we'll see some more of those in the future. So the waffles were pretty easy and they were delicious. The cornmeal, I think, provided just a little different flavor than the usual waffles, but it was really good. We ate the little scraps that kind of cooked on the edges as they were cooking, and that was good, just by themselves. They're not super sweet in and of themselves, but the apple cider syrup is really sweet. I really think I over-reduced mine, even though it was never the cup and a half that she says it's supposed to reduce to. I think it was still closer to 2 cups, a little bit over a cup and a half when I was done. I should have kept an eye on it near the end, a little bit better, but it took us like 3 hours at a simmer to get it anywhere near done. So instead of the 45 minutes that I was expecting. So life happened and I couldn't watch it every second for the last, half hour or so. And it kind of candied. So when I took it out of the refrigerator, it was super, super thick. Had to warm it up just to get it all out of the measuring cup that I stored it in the refrigerator. So that was a thing. Almost like candy, honestly. And I did end up adding a little bit of water to try to thin it out some. Probably should have added a little bit more. I can play with that next time because we have a lot left over. In fact, we had a lot of batter and a lot of syrup left over. So I can play with that next time, see if that's, feasible to make it more of a syrup and less of a candy. But it did get really sticky on the plate very quickly the way that I did it. So if I were to make that syrup again, and I thought it was delicious, I don't think my kids enjoyed it, but they don't usually eat syrup on their waffles anyway, or pancakes or anything. Chocolate syrup maybe, but not maple syrup. But if I made it again, I would be very careful, and I think it would be much easier to cook this to a temperature. So I would probably check the internet for what temperature is a good syrup temperature, because when you cook sugary things, if it gets to a certain temperature, it's sort of a certain thickness, right? And so that's how you make candy and fudge and all of that. So I want to bring it down from the candy texture we had to a more syrupy texture. But other than taking a lot longer for the syrup, which would be awful if you tried to do that the morning of, I'm glad I made it last night, because otherwise we would still be waiting to have breakfast. It was a really easy recipe. We really enjoyed it. I would certainly make the waffles again. Not sure about the syrup. I would try it if my kids liked it. But if not, I'd just eat it with plain apple or plain maple syrup. So it'd be great with fruit. Or just a great breakfast waffle. If you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button and come back and watch me make something else next week.